culture change is not just going to happen. It has to be clearly articulated and it needs to be planned for as part of the change initiative. But cultural change is not a change initiative in and of itself. The business will change when people change. That's the reality of it. But it will all come together into a new kind of culture towards the end as you make the vision story happen. Hey there, friend. It's Stefanie Krievins, your host of the Hot Mess Hotline, where mid-level leaders learn to think like entrepreneurs. In today's conversation, we are at step 7 and 8 of John Kotter's 8 awesome steps for leading change. And we're going to talk about what to do as your change efforts start working, start gaining momentum. And then the 8th step is where actual culture change happens. You know, I think when it comes to change, many of us leaders think that cultural change has to happen first before the change can happen. And according to John Kotter's research and my own experience, cultural change is actually the last step. When we start with cultural change, our people get overwhelmed. It's kind of one of those words like accountability, change management, culture change that just makes people's armpits sweat a little bit. So let's not bring it up at the beginning. We'll just let them see the fruits of it at the end of the change initiative once we've accomplished key pieces of our vision story. This global pandemic has created massive change in a short amount of time. During this season of the Hot Mess Hotline, I'm going to provide leadership and management tools that you can implement right after listening so that you and your team can learn the hard lessons from this time, emerge more resilient and focused than ever, and for you as a mid-level leader, you can guide your team through change in the future based on what you're learning now so that there doesn't have to be a global pandemic that forces your hand for successful change. Today, we are on episode 5 of 6 of this inaugural season, and we are continuing the conversation into the 8 steps for leading, guiding, driving change, whatever verb you want to use there. And we're relying on the expertise of John Kotter from both his book and his article called Leading Change, and my experience with my clients across the country through my coaching and training work, working with CEOs, consultants, and mid-level leaders in mostly professional services companies and doing amazing work across the country, and I get to support and guide that. Right now, you need tools to make sure the great things come from this really hard time and that you strengthen what is working well in your business, but also take the weaknesses that you've discovered and get them fixed. Let's do this. When it comes to change, I think most of us are prepared for it to not work, for it to not stick, for us to get disappointed. And instead, I want you to change your mindset that you are hoping for all the right things to happen and come true. And that's because you're better equipped as a leader because of this podcast to make that happen. So what do you do when the vision that you're trying to bring to life is coming to life? What do you do when your team is hitting their benchmarks at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and beyond? And you guys are seeing the fruits of your labor. You're seeing the success. The revenue's going up. The expenses are going down. You see the efficiency. People are able to leave work at 5 o'clock and not work into the evening. What do you do then? Here's the fun part. You step on the gas because you're in the flywheel of success, as Jim Collins says, right? You are in the space where now you can add on more. Your people are warmed up. They are primed. They are ready for change. Now is not the time to let off the gas. Now is the time to punch that accelerator and see what else is possible. Add in more complex change. Add in more technology that integrates with the technology that you just upgraded. Ask people to change their processes even faster. Ask for more high-achieving results. With that, of course, ask for more help, more resources, because you've proven yourself as a leader who can make change happen. So you deserve more people, more training, more attention on your department. Make that happen. And remember, because true change emanates from mid-level leaders, that guiding coalition that we talked about in an earlier episode, when your top-level leadership see you living it out, it's going to get them on board if they're not on board already, right? Everyone has their own change cycle, how long it takes them to get on board. And we can't assume that our top level executives are going to get on board right away. The more you live it out and the more success from your business results that you have, you're going to be able to get those top or those upper level executives on your team because of the business success that they're seeing that you have. So this is your opportunity to shine, my friend. This is the opportunity for your team to shine too. Make sure you're sharing in that glory. And for those of you that may report to you or may not yet report to you, but they're in a lower level than you in the organization, they're going to start living it out too. So when change gets really hard, remember that your job as a mid-level leader is to be the role model for change, to stick your neck out a little bit. This is not the time to play it safe when you have awesome new business results to achieve. This is your time to challenge the status quo, because people need to see you being successful before they'll get on board. Once you're in that flywheel of success and you can just compound your success and add to it and add new layers and add complexity and add speed, what's really fun is that you get to revisit some of those really entrenched processes or rules that seem to exist in your organization for absolutely no reason. Some crappy thing that happened back in 1994 when Kurt Cobain died. And because of that business situation, because that one customer had that one problem way back when, y'all had to have a new 20-page manual printed out. Friends, now is your time to tackle things like that. I'll never forget, I was giving a leadership training to a small company. And one of the things we were talking about was stress level and how this one particular person felt like they couldn't really unwind over the weekend because they had to log in every Sunday night because of their technology, create a report, and email it to the 3 owners of the company. And I asked, why do you have to do that report? And you could hear the air being sucked out of the room by the other 25 people. It was, how dare you ask that question? Made me giggle a lot. But the reality is every single company has those things, those old habits and processes that they rely on because someone said they needed it a long time ago. When you are a demonstrated change maker, you get to bust up some of those old habits that just take up time but don't produce any positive business results. That's when things get fun, I think. You get to look at what are some of the connections between teams, between departments, even divisions that are holding us back, and let's tackle those so that we can move even more quickly. A lot of large organizations have a lot of bureaucracy that does not contribute to the bottom line. And I say that with all love and respect. Like, clearly, large organizations have built successful businesses, but you all spend an inordinate amount of time politicking and following made-up rules that do nothing for the bottom line. And if you could free up 50% of that time to do things that actually contribute to your business results, you would grow even faster. So that's my soapbox for the day. But for those of you that are in smaller organizations, I know you got things like this too. So when you're on a hot streak, when you're able to say, look at all the good things we're doing over here, I want you to tackle some of these issues that are holding back the whole company that are connected to your department. Don't go rogue on me and try to fix issues in marketing when you're in finance. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in order to assist your change initiatives that you're in charge of, start looking at the tangential processes that are also slowing down your team and see what you can impact there, because you have built the street cred to go to the rest of the organization to say, look what we've been able to do here. Let's apply that same process and thinking to the other work related to our work and make that better too. So friends, when change start happening, when it start to stick, when people are seeing success and you get to celebrate together, now is the time to speed it up and do even more great work. This season of the Hot Mess Hotline is brought to you by my Change Management Crash Course. This program is for the busy mid-level leader who needs to pivot out of this COVID-19 hot mess by creating new business results with an even stronger team. Go to changecrashcourse.com. Don't wait to become the pro troublemaker you've always wanted to be. When a CEO or a mid-level leader brings me into their company or their team to talk about the change that needs to happen there, oftentimes the leader wants to talk about the cultural change that needs to happen. So changing values or identifying values, the norms of how they work. And for those of us who are big picture thinkers and long-term thinkers and strategists, that makes all the sense in the world. And I remember digging into this research with John Cotter's books, an article, Leading Change, when he says the cultural change comes last, not first. I was like, whoa, mind blown, John Cotter. Like, I don't even know what to do with that, because most of my clients come to me asking for cultural change. And I say, yeah, let's do some cultural change. And so since digging into his research, I've realized the limitations of that thinking, because cultural change is a really big, long-term behemoth of a project, right? It's like taking the largest cruise ship in the world and trying to turn it on a dime. It just doesn't happen. And so instead, we have to use business processes, business results, external factors, internal factors. We need to get people rallied around the business case, not the here's how you have to change in order to fit into the organization. That sounds threatening and scary. And so step 8 of the 8 steps of change management is the cultural change that happens because your change initiative has happened. So this might take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. This is the long-term stuff that is the impact from you getting new business results. And of course, for you as a mid-level leader, like, this applies to your team just as much as it applies to an entire organization, because there's even cultures within cultures within cultures, right? And so I would encourage you, as you think about what change needs to happen in your business, don't start with norms, values, how we treat each other. Start with the business need for what needs to be better and stronger in the business. What needs to go away so that we can focus on the other important pieces. This last bit requires a ton of communication. You heard me say in an earlier episode, when you're communicating change, 7 by 7 by 7, 7 channels, 7 messages repeated 7 times. This is even more than that, done across multiple years so that the message lands and so that people know that you're transitioning into a newer organization. So that people know that as we do this work, there are new expectations. But don't use the C word. Don't be like, hey guys, we're working on a new culture. No one cares about that except for your HR staff. No one cares. But instead, we're working on big, hairy, audacious goals together. And here's how you can contribute. And here's what's going to be different. And here's what's going to go away. And here's what we're going to add on. That's what needs to happen over long-term communication. And so when you get towards the end of your change initiative, it's going to be crystal clear, if it hasn't happened already, who fits into the new culture and who does not. What are our new behaviors that mean success here? What are the behaviors that will no longer be tolerated? So don't focus on cultural change and having all of those pieces in place before you try to move forward, because that's not how you're going to find success. You've got to rally people around an amazing emotional vision story, ambitious goals, really, really important work, and new ways of doing that work, new resources to do that work before you get to the culture piece. I think this is fascinating, but think about your tendency to think about culture before results. When businesses have got to make money in order to be in it for the long haul, as a mid-level leader, you've got to focus on making money, making the right kind of money, having the right people to do that work, to deliver the work, and helping them up their game along the way. And because of all those previous steps, 1 through 7, eight. I don't want to say eight is just going to happen, right? A culture change is not just going to happen. It has to be clearly articulated. It needs to be planned for as part of the change initiative. But cultural change is not a change initiative in and of itself. The business will change when people change. That's the reality of it. But it will all come together into a new kind of culture towards the end as you make the vision story happen. And of course, as you think about longer term implications of whatever change initiative you have in the works coming to life, with COVID-19, it's yet to be seen what kind of recession it's going to create as I record this in late May 2020. It's going to impact our economy in the long term. It's going to impact our businesses and our communities for at least 6 months, and if not into 2 years. Like, this is just the reality of how this works, right? When the recession hit in 2007, 8-ish, 9-ish, 10-ish, we didn't really emerge from that for several years. And the same is going to be true here. So we're going to emerge into a new environment. What I would suggest that you think about is creating change initiatives around a disaster recovery plan that will get you until about the summer of 2022. So a 2-year disaster recovery plan full of change initiatives that will help you transition into whatever the new normal becomes. You all know I don't like those words, but I don't have better words for you at the moment. But don't think about a strategic plan at this point, because there's too much volatility in our external environment in order to do that. But you can create a 2-year disaster recovery plan to stabilize your department, stabilize your organization, and help it transition into the future when that gets here. And so chock it full of change management initiatives that combine both the urgency of the realities of COVID-19 and its impact on the recession, as well as other needed business initiatives that have been on your radar for years. Now is the time to tackle those. Now is the time to maintain the urgency created by COVID-19, leverage it, combine it with the tools for urgency that we talked about in episode 2, and continue moving forward so you can create that flywheel of success to just build and build and build your team so that status quo never becomes, status quo. So that you always have a team that's ready for change. Because the reality is something like this will happen again that will completely disrupt our economy in some kind of way. Heaven forbid that it's another global pandemic, right? That's scary and has been just terrible for too many families. Something like this will happen again, no doubt. So take the lessons learned from this global pandemic in 2020 and build upon them so that you are even stronger and more ready the next time something tries to destabilize your building, or the next time something tries to destabilize your team or your business. You all will just kick it in its ass. I was watching a video from a woman on LinkedIn who's just an amazing marketing guru here in Indianapolis. And she said in this video, I refuse to participate in the recession. I refuse to believe that it is happening. Y'all, I want that kind of confidence right now for you and for my own business. We can kick this thing's butt. We can come out even stronger because it happened to us. And I believe that these 8 steps from John Kotter can be our guide along the way. So I want you to think about, as you move forward and as you listen to our next episode featuring a CEO of an IT consulting company, what kind of leader do you need to be to speed up the flywheel of success for your team right now and for the next year? What kind of leader do you need to be to speed up the flywheel of success? All right, friends, that rounds out our conversation today, where we focused on, what do you do when things start to work? What do you do when you see the change happening? And then this step 8, how do we let this new culture emerge because the change happened? Not how do we create a new culture in order to create change? Very different processes and set of processes. All right, so I look forward to being with you on our next episode, where we have a CEO of an IT consulting firm. it's an interview style versus just me talking at the microphone here. But we are going to talk about what he's learned during the pandemic with his own company and what he's going to do different in the future because of his lessons learned for his company and for his team and his work with clients. As you can imagine, as an IT consulting firm, when in mid-March, everyone had to, create the capability to work from home if they didn't have it already, his business went gangbusters. In many, many awesome ways. But even in his successful business, he's going to tell us about what he learned about what doesn't work so well right now and how he can do it differently in the future. My last request of you, friend, subscribe wherever you're listening, share with another leader at work, sign up for weekly straightforward leadership tools at stephaniekrievins.com/blog. And all these options, as well as how to get Cotter's book, are in the show notes. We'll talk soon.